Oh, beautiful gold rush with your sparkling top prize, you surely are a sight for sore eyes. And jackpot slots with your chance of $75,000 winners. Oh, how I'd take you for a candlelight dinner.
Sounds like people are really loving the new February instant games from the Tennessee Lottery. Play today for your chance to win up to $5 million, only from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
You dream of a career with better pay, benefits, and hours, but you're not sure about going back to school full-time. At Miller Mock College, we can help. We offer programs that are affordable and flexible to fit into your busy life. Most can be completed in less than 2 years. See what Miller Mock College can offer. Visit our campus at 6397 Lee Highway, Suite 100 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or learn more online at miller-motte.edu.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. This is I Compete, Building Your Empire with John Hewitt, live from the castle. Hi, I'm Roberta Barrett. I'm John Hewitt's producer. You might be asking, who is John Hewitt? Well, he is the Hewitt in Jackson Hewitt Tax Services. If you want to find out more about John Hewitt and what he's currently doing, go to loyaltybrands.com. That's loyaltybrands.com, or find John T. Hewitt on LinkedIn or Facebook. John Hewitt's made over 1,000 millionaires, and you could be the next one. Here is your host, John Hewitt.
Today we have Gary Laney on the phone, and I'd like to start by Gary telling us about your experience and since you got out of college.
Wow, John. Good morning. Anyway, thank you. Since I got out of college, that's been a little while. So hope I can explain.
Not nearly as long as mine.
Well, let's see, I graduated in 1980, so it's been 41 years. And, my life has been an interesting life because I kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was also a military officer. So imagine growing up in a family where you've got stringent, rules with somebody that really wants to build a business, and he has several businesses. So anyway, I grew up in that environment. I've always said that my first MBA came from my dad. I have an MBA from Northwestern, but the one I really, really value is my dad's MBA because he taught me how to do everything in business. So when I got out of college, I was raring to go. I wanted to do something. I thought about getting my MBA initially, and I had a good friend, mentor, if you will. His name was Bill Jones. He had been a state senator. He was an entrepreneur, engineer, really amazing mentor. He told me, he said, Gary, don't take your MBA yet. You're not ready for it. And I said, well, why? And he said, because you need practical experience. You need to be able to talk about, when you go to MBA school, you want to be able to have the ability to relate to the concepts they're teaching. So I thought that was good advice. So I said, okay, so I'm going to take a couple of years and get good work experience. So I was working with a company called Eagle Systems at the time. I was a sales manager, and I had an opportunity to be a sales director right out of college if I took the job and didn't go to graduate school. So I did that. It was a wonderful experience. I got to manage, actually develop a division of this company. Anyway, we went in and we helped people in their homes in California save energy by changing a lot of the things in their home, insulation, the clock thermostats, way back before we had all these amazing, incredible technology we have today. Well, I did that for 2 years. I managed about 400 salespeople. When I decided to get my MBA after that, I was amazed at how many universities and graduate schools wanted my experience because of what I'd been doing. So, where I think I could have got into a decent school before, I decided I wanted to get into a top 10 MBA program. And that work experience made a huge difference to me. For example, I applied to Wharton School of Management. I applied to Columbia, to Northwestern. Anyway, there was about a long list, but there's 10 that I wanted to get into, and I got into about 4 of those. I was accepted by 13 of the top 20, actually. I actually made 13 applications, a little bit overzealous, and decided to go to Northwestern, and that was a great experience for me. So out of college, 2 years of work experience, and then 2 years of the formal MBA program at Northwestern's Kellogg program. After that, I got into consulting. I was a co-chairman at the university at Kellogg. really good experience. I had an internship in Chicago with a wonderful mentor named Thomas Kuzmarski. Thomas became a friend. He's been a friend ever since. He's we'll get to the point where I talk about writing a book. This guy's written 8 books. His wife has written almost as many. Super amazing consultant. He started something in Chicago called Chicago Innovation. Anyway, I've been following him through the years, and that was a great experience to work for him. After that, I got back into industry or corporation kind of jobs, and went back to this company I'd worked for before my MBA program called Ecosystems, but they were starting a new division, and I became the lead on that, ran that for a few years, and then wanted to get into high tech because I had a background, or at least a minor from Kellogg in information technology. I think back then it was called Management of Information Systems. So I took a job with a company called Folio, and for the next 16 years worked for high tech companies, and worked for companies that today several of them are owned by Oracle. But I really got into it. I love technology. I became a sales manager, became a sales VP, and was a VP and executive for about 14 years. So that was a great experience. Then I had 2 boys that were in the age where I didn't want to be gone all the time, because in sales, as you know, you have to travel a lot. So I decided to quit my last job that I helped get acquired by Salesforce.com. So Mark Benioff was the contact at that time, and they were interested in the company I was working for, and I helped them get acquired. And then I decided to go off my own. So those, original motivations that my dad had taught me kind of finally came true, and I decided to go off on my own and started to invest in small startups. Had a great run, and for the last 17 years, that's what I've been doing. So then I had a chance to meet you, and so it's just been a great run. That's all I can say.
Well, congratulations. That's exciting. And so when did you decide that you were going to write a book?
Wow, that's a good question. Well, I've wanted to write a book probably for 15 or 20 years. I didn't get serious about it until maybe 5 years ago when I was the co-founder and CEO of a company called Trustegrity. And I was teaching people about concepts, about influence, about how to get started in your career, how to get the most out of the experience you're having, how to be responsible. There's a lot of concepts I've been teaching. I think I acquired through association with Stephen R. Covey back in the day when he was getting started. Had the privilege of getting some tutoring from him and mentoring. And so I always thought that, someday I'll take the concepts I've learned, I'll add upon them, and I'll develop something that would be helpful and beneficial to other people. So it's probably been 15 years, and got serious about it, probably thinking about it about 5 years ago. Never could find the time to do it. And then, by the way, COVID happened, as we all know. And I'd sold my company, and there just wasn't the ability to start up, events and group meetings like we had in person. So it was a good time for me to start writing a book.
Awesome. Now you have 12 authors. Is that biblical? 12 CEOs. Is that just coincidence, or is it biblical?
Yeah, you know what? I am a very biblical person, but it wasn't intended that way. But, I think nothing happens by coincidence. Honestly, and I think you're probably the same mind. But now the 12, it started out to be 6. And then I realized I need to have a balance and diversity and have a set that would represent all the people I love and all the people that I cherish. And so now I have, there were 12 CEOs, 6 were men, 6 were women, and a great crowd. And it turned out to match the number of chapters I had in the book so that I could have people like you exemplify the principles I was teaching. So looking for those great individuals that had great principles, that were great leaders, that could relate to the things I was trying to teach.
Awesome. You mentioned you had an MBA from one of the top 10 MBA schools in the country, which is, of course, Northwestern is. But you said you got more of an MBA from your father. Do you know of any course in the country that teaches people to be CEOs other than the School of Hard Knocks?
No, I don't. Certainly they talk about. So I had a triple major at Northwestern, and one of those majors was, how to become a general manager. How to run a business, if you will. But there was never even though I love my MBA from Northwestern, really there was no practical sense to that, where they put you out on the street and helps you understand what it really means to run a business. So no, I agree with you. There's not anything out there like that.
Well, the good news is we're starting one, and I'd love to have you as a guest to teach one of our classes.
I would love it, John. That'd be an honor of mine.
Yeah, we're myself and Bob Gappa. I'm sure you're familiar with Bob Gappa, the most experienced consultant ever for the International Franchise Association. He's consulted with over 1,600 companies. So, wow. I think there's just a lack in the world of being able to teach CEO practices, and so virtually every CEO comes on board and you just learn from your mistakes, and it's not something that's taught well anywhere. So let's talk about your book. And before one last question before you get into talking about the book, you founded a number of companies, been an entrepreneur, and what's your opinion of the most important thing you need as a CEO founder to be successful?
You want one thing, two things? What would you like?
Well, three or less.
Okay.
I have just one of my own, and I'll give you after you're done. Obviously, there's many skills you have to be extraordinary, but I have one, and you can give me three. That'd be great.
Hey, to run a business, John, I mean, I just have to think of my own experience, and so that's what I'm going to go by. But number one, there has to be passion. There has to be some desire to be able to do this in the first place. I mean, some people think, I want to be a leader, I want to own my own company, but they really haven't counted the cost, if you will, of what it really takes to do that. And so you have to be willing to, get into this new opportunity if you're going to start a company or if you're going to lead a company, and say, I will handle and deal with anything that's thrown my way. My book talks about survival instinct. And so one of the things I've always believed in is, yes, you have to have desire, but you also have to have that important commitment that no matter what happens, whatever wrench gets thrown into the works, whatever situation I get into, I can handle. So that's number one, I think. Number two is, how you keep going when things get tough. Okay, I've got the mental attitude, I'm going to do it, but how do I keep going? What's the motivation and what's going to keep me going? So there's a purpose why you do these things. And why, a lot of people start businesses and then at some point someone will ask them, well, why are you doing this? Well, to make money. Well, no, that's not a good reason to do things, because you can make money doing a lot of things and a lot less stress, by the way, by not trying to run a company. But I think if you understand that there's a reason why you want to do it, maybe it's because you want to give back, you want to be able to help people, or there's something that you really have in expertise that you feel like you can contribute that others may not have, that differentiates you. So I think those are the main two things is, having that survival instinct, and number two is why you do things.
The second one is if I had to have two, it would be certainly, as you said, perseverance. I think my philosophy is find something you love, work hard, and persevere. And I think I made up this phrase, which is unbelievable to me because I've never heard anyone say it, but it's TGIM. It's not TGIF. It's thank God it's Monday. And my philosophy is that if on Monday morning you're going to work and you're not looking forward to it, then you're going to the wrong place. So, but that's my number two, or I guess number three is to have fun. But number two is perseverance. But my thought, Gary, that separates great entrepreneurs from less great or above average or average entrepreneurs is that you have to have a ability to have a goal, a path, and then that's reasonable. And then you have to get everyone to buy in. You have to get your customers, if you have franchisees, employees, vendors, investors. The great entrepreneurs get people to buy into their dream. And for example, Jeff Bezos, he lost billions and billions of dollars for decades. And now he's the richest guy or second richest guy in the world. And he just got people to buy into his dream. And I think that's the number one thing that separates from the truly exceptional to the above average or less CEOs.
I totally agree with that, John.
Okay, great. Now let's talk about the book and the lessons you learned first of all, the lessons you learned, and then we'll talk about what you would like people to get out of the book first. So you interviewed 12 exceptional CEOs, and I sort of pat myself in the back that you included me in that 12. What lessons did you learn? Anything that surprised you?
Well, it's interesting. You take the things you think you believe in and the things you know from your experience, and then you compile them, and you learn a lot more, by the way, by doing that. So I've been teaching principles about how to cultivate relationships, like you talked about, how to get buy-in from people. Well, you have to get buy-in from the right people, and you have to get buy-in from the people that care about helping you get to where you want to go. So there has to be an exchange of value, which I talk about in the book. But I learned a lot. I was amazed at how much I learned when I started to compile these things and say, well, if I was going to put down, a certain number of principles, or what I call success factors, that I could teach to people that could be a legacy to me, what would they be? And so that's what it came down to. And then I, initially wanted to just give a big, broad picture of what it takes to be successful. How do you do that with relationships? And the core principle, the core crux of my whole book is about relationships that matter, relationships that fit, and the relationship I call them strategic, because strategic in the sense that it's good for you, good for the other person that you're involved with. There's that value exchange, and more importantly, that it has long-term potential. So that's really what I learned in this whole thing is, what's the main message that came out of this. And I learned that, there's a lot of stuff I teach in my book. There's a lot of great examples and wonderful people that I interviewed like you. But it came down to saying that relationships are what matter in your life and your business. And those relationships need to be a win-win, and they have to be something that's going to be long-term. So if there's one thing I wanted to teach out of the book, that's the one thing.
So relationships, and what else do you think that people are going to learn by reading the book? I mean, there must be other lessons that you learn from interviewing these people and that you'd like the reader to take away.
Well, sure. Thanks for that question, by the way. And so, number one, I decided to write a book that was standalone, and the interviews with these great leaders actually was an afterthought. So I just want to explain that there's 12 chapters. Actually, the first 2 are preparatory. They're kind of your perspective of how you prepare for this journey I call of influence and success. And then as I got into the book, I said, this person would be a great person. So John Hewitt, for example, who I consider you to be a center of influence, a national center of influence. So I thought you would be a wonderful example to be able to display that concept of what it really means to be a center of influence, a person that actually takes responsibility for that role. Because in my book, I talk about a center of influence is not something that you declare to the world yourself. It's something that's bestowed upon you by other people. So people that follow you, and I've followed you for the last 2 years. When you show up somewhere, people come because they care about what you say. They care about your example. They care about the things you're going to teach. And more importantly, how the great history, track record you have of knowing how to develop something and be successful. So if I were to step back, I would have to say that there's a broad picture here, but it's a progressive track. Once again, I have people in this book that just magically, it seemed like, not by coincidence, turned out to be the right person to match the chapter that I was writing. And so the first 2 chapters are about perspective. It's about how do you have this survival mindset that, again, anything that comes my way, I'm going to be able to handle it. And that's just what I'm committed to. Number 2 is that relationships matter, that your network matters, that your personal sphere of influence is what is going to carry you through your life and help you be successful. So if those 2 points, I call them perspective points, you'll have the ability to be able to handle anything that steps in your way. And number 2, that you'll be able to do it through your relationships with other people. So then I have these 10 success factors that then are taught about in the book. And it starts out with accepting responsibility. So I start with the very basics, John, and I'm progressively, step by step, help you learn how to, number 1, recognize influence. So this book is about influence. And then more importantly, strategic influence. Number 2, how do you access the influence? Once you have access to it, you respect it and you utilize it in a way that's going to be productive for you, but also with the person that you're dealing with. Number 3 is how do you expand that influence? So I've learned what influence is. I've learned how to get access to it. Well, it's going to be good for me if I can learn how to gain my own influence and then to expand it. And then someday when I get to the point where I've got influence that actually matters to other people, then I need to go from what I used to call a go-getter. I don't know if you ever read the book by Peter Kine, The Go-Getter. It was a book I used to teach in all my days of selling and teaching salespeople. But you have to transition from a go-getter to a go-giver. And that was really critical for me to teach in the end. That this is not just a game where you're trying to acquire things for your own personal benefit. It's not a selfish attitude. It's a selfless attitude. And in the end, you want to be the kind of person who got to the point where they had the ability to influence, but influence for good. So you asked me, what else is there involved in this? Well, strategic influence, yes, but I have to add a very important word to that, and that is positive influence. Positive influence that actually impacts people for good. There's a benefit for the people that are influenced and receiving and the person giving the influence. So does that help a little bit? I'm just trying to map it out, but there are 2 preparatory aspects, and then there's 10 success factors that help you lead through this journey to get you to where you want to be, and then ultimately be able to help other people do the same.
Absolutely. There's a couple points there that obviously to whom much is given, much is expected. And the one lesson I've learned in life of one of my top 10 lessons is you can't outgive God, that giving back is a requirement. And that's passing it forward. There was a great, simple movie, cheap movie to make probably, but I love the premise of it. And I think the name of the movie was Pay It Forward. And so, giving back,
I love that.
We teach that to all our franchisees that ultimate success isn't your profitability. It's paying it forward and giving back. But did you see were any of the 12 people you talked to, did they skate through life and not have adversity?
No, I was, first of all, it's an honor for me to be able to have a one-on-one discussion with such high-level, influential people. But the really interesting part about it is all these people were humble. You're a very humble person, by the way. I really appreciate your perspective about life, people, and God. But I can't think of a person that didn't have adversity. Now, there were other people. There was one woman I remember I interviewed that said, I kind of grew up in a setting where I had everything kind of given to me, but listen, she needed to transition to a point in life where she could give back or she could actually contribute. And she had a lot of diversity going through that process, or adversity, excuse me. So, no, I don't think I can't think of a single person that didn't have situations where they had to tackle challenges and overcome things that would help them to get to a point where they felt confident and have the ability to be successful. I've got some pretty good stories I can tell if you want to hear any of these.
Yeah, sure.
So, for example, Shomduta Singh, Dr. Shomduta Singh, she is a serial entrepreneur. She's a young executive, but when she was in her teenage years, her parents are both doctors. And she announced to her, and it's in the book, that she announced to her parents that she didn't want to be a doctor. She's an only child. Imagine you come from a doctor family, and your only child doesn't want to follow in your footsteps. Well, they didn't. They were kind of discouraged about that, and her father told her to move out. She was like 15, so she moved out, and she had to figure out how to provide for herself. And she came from a fairly well-to-do family. In fact, her father was well known. Her father took care of Mother Teresa until she died. So kind of a famous doctor in India. Well, she went out on her own, had to figure out how to survive. And I know that she told me one of the experiences she had to do is to learn how to make some money. And that was someone told her how to make chocolate. So she learned how to make chocolate. And she had a bunch of roommates because they were trying to survive in this apartment. And when the boyfriends would come by, she'd sell them chocolate. And so she always gives these boyfriends credit for helping her get through school. Anyway, she went on to have honors and graduate, and her father came to the graduation, was so proud of her, stood up in front of everybody to clap for her, and she knew right then that her father had done this for one reason, that's to help her survive in life. It wasn't because he didn't love her, it wasn't because he didn't care about her, but he wanted her to figure out how to do it on her own. So just one example, but it was a really cool example, and she's continued to be that forceful, dynamic person that doesn't care what's put in her path. She'll handle it, she'll tackle it, and I think just a great example in the book.
Did any or all of the 12 entrepreneur CEOs, did they talk about any failures they had in their career?
Well, yeah. I mean, so Brian Esposito is one that comes to mind. Brian is he was a client of mine almost 20 years ago. I used to buy advertising from one of my businesses, and he told me that I think it was in 2012 he had this very bad car accident, where all of a sudden, he was not capable of running his business anymore. And he learned at that point, he said, that the people he had hired were the wrong people to take care of his business, especially when he wasn't available, because he apparently was the voice, he was the image of the business, the brand of the image and the business. And once he was taken out of the picture, the business just started to collapse. And so he made up his mind right then, if he could survive this accident and get back on his feet, that he was going to try to find people that were willing and able to run a business without him being in every aspect of it. Because you can't scale, as you know, without having people that can replicate and responsibly take care of a business. So he went through, he almost lost everything. And today he's gone from having, a few businesses. He had a good model back then for acquiring businesses, but he had to be the forefront, figure in everything. Today he's not. He's learned how to acquire businesses, get good people involved, and then he's really the architect. And so he can stand back and he can guide people, but his businesses are really kind of autonomous and they can take care of themselves. And so he's a really good example, I think, of that, of someone who almost lost everything, had some major challenges. Not only health, but also economically because of the issues that his business was going through, and figured out how to survive.
I read recently in the last 30 days, and I don't remember where I read it, but the quote was something like, "Those that had failed the most have succeeded the most." So you have to have many, many failures to have success. Is that true?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment about that, obviously. So, in my eyes, and I've had many obstacles, and I've learned in life that obstacles are actually opportunities. And that's the way I look at it. If something comes your way, you don't like the fact that something stops or slows down your progress. But every time it's happened in my life, I've learned this problem has an opportunity. What is it? So stand back, take a look at it, and sometimes because you have to be more creative and you have to think, about the future, how to get around this problem or how to get through it, you'll learn that there's actually a better opportunity that is in the forefront, something that's going to help you even be more successful. So I think obstacles, being pushed to a point where you fail, so that you actually have to learn, where you have to understand why you failed, so you can avoid that in the future, is a very big part of succeeding.
We only have a couple minutes left. You didn't mention the name of your book, and would you name the?
Well, thank you.
Would you tell us the name of the book and where we can get it? And you've already won some awards.
So yeah, the name of the book is called "The Power of Strategic Influence," not the power of influence, the power of strategic influence. The big difference is that we're trying to understand what it means to be strategic about the things we do. And that has to involve people who are strategic to you and you to them. So that's what it's about. And and then the subtitle is 10 Success Factors of Highly Influential People. So we had and thank you for the mention, we had a big success in our launch. We hit 5 number 1 categories on Amazon in business. And good categories, I'll just mention a few of them. So one of the categories we hit number 1 in is strategic business planning. Another one is strategic management, business management, systems and planning. So the people that are buying this care about being strategic, about planning, to be able to have the ability to be able to do things in a strategic way. So I was glad to see that we hit categories like that. This is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million. So you can find it. You can probably get it at your local bookstore. They may have to order it, but you can buy it almost everywhere.
Gary Laney, thank you for your time. I have to tell you that they sent the book, your copy, the signed copy of the book, to the wrong office. So I haven't got a chance to read it yet.
Oh, no. Well, do I need to resend it one?
No, they forwarded it to me. So I'm
okay.
Looking forward to reading it and learning the power of strategic influence. Thanks, Gary, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you for taking the time to learn about how to build your empire with John Hewitt. Find John on LinkedIn at John T. Hewitt or message John Hewitt on Facebook. This is I Compete, live from the castle, building your empire with John Hewitt. Don't miss new episodes every Monday by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, cpnshows.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, this was I Compete, building your empire with John Hewitt.
You dream of a career with better pay, benefits, and hours, but you're not sure about going back to school full-time. At Miller Mock College, we can help. We offer programs that are affordable and flexible to fit into your busy life. Most can be completed in less than 2 years. See what Miller Mock College can offer. Visit our campus at 6397 Lee Highway, Suite 100 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or learn more online at miller-motte.edu.